Felix here, and I promised you a walkthrough to what I think is the best opportunity in the market right now. It is defense spending. And that might not be particularly appetizing to everybody, I get that, but if you're just here for the money, well then, take the money. So I've actually got notes on the screen here for you. I'm going to share them with you. You can see exactly what my notes are, and then I'll walk you through 5 stocks, is it? Actually, 4 stocks and 2 bonus stocks. And I'll explain why these other 2 are bonus stocks in a second. And I'll give you for each one the exact price where I would buy it and also where I would sell it. And if that's helpful to you, share it with more people. This isn't financial advice. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm giving you some walkthrough examples, education that I hope will be somewhat enlightening as I'm sitting here in glorious Cannes, waiting for the film stars to wake up. So, first of all, it's a massive, massive deal. It's a huge deal. It's the most beautiful deal since the beginning of deals. Anyway, I digress. $142 billion. It's described as the largest in history. I wonder who came up with that description. And it basically means Saudi Arabia is going to get a whole overhaul of their defense system, and from about a dozen US defense firms. So who's going to benefit from most from it? Where's the dosh going to go? That's what I want to walk you through here. Who's getting it? Well, we've got Air Force, we've got air and missile defense, maritime coastal security, border security, and then IT and communications upgrades. So basically the whole lot. There'll also be training and support, long-term cash flow for everybody. Absolutely wonderful. And it reinforces the existing partnership that the US has had with the Saudis for a long, long, long time. They're also going to put $5 billion into a new era aerospace and defense technology fund, which will channel money, seed funding, if you will, into American industries, which is, again, very, very nice. So more investment for the companies looking for investment. Now, the first stock, you might be forgiven for thinking, hang on, Boeing, aren't they the guys who lose wheels and doors and chairs and passengers and whole airplanes and, generally speaking, not the greatest company in the world? And I agree with you completely on that. Complete Muppet show over there. But it's Boeing. And the US defense industry, well, there are only a couple of people who can actually put a screw into something that'll blow things up, and therefore Boeing is going to be around. Now, it seems the Saudis are going to upgrade their F-15 fleet, which will be huge. And they also have a space division and satellite division and everything else. And the emphasis here is to localizing 50% of military spending under Vision 2030 means Boeing's partnership with Saudi Arabian military industries for maintenance, repair, and overhaul and local manufacturing is crucial. So it means that this BA is going to get this perma contract in Saudi. Maybe there'll be a joint venture or something like that. Anyway, we're expecting a big order, 10 to 15 billion here for those F-15s, those upgraded ones, and that's of course good. Now you might be thinking, I can't buy Boeing. Look at this stock. Look at the disaster that this is, right? It was trading at $267 up here. But I actually put this on my buy list last week, and it bought. Why did it buy? Because all my buys are orders that buy above a certain level. So I never buy at the current share price, basically. I always buy a little higher. And you might be thinking, why does Felix hate money so much? No, it just means we clear certain hurdles. And literally this blue line that I painted in here is the hurdle, as they say in France here. So you see these recent highs that we've had? I want to exceed those highs before I buy. So if we're trading, say here, and I'm setting up a buy order, it'll be the close above that blue line. And that's exactly what I did. It filled. So now you're thinking, why are you giving me these late again, Felix? There's always one or two in the chat. In the chat, most of you people are absolutely wonderful, but there's always one or two whingers. But look, we literally have a beautiful setup here. We've touched that point so many freaking times, that blue line, that this makes a very, very, very strong, compelling case for this is a breakout. So we're liking it. I honestly think whether you buy this at 190 or 205, it doesn't make a huge difference, to be honest. So I wouldn't really worry about that too much. Now, there will be a little bit of resistance when we get to, where do we get to? When we get to these sort of levels here, which will be around 220. But I think that defense spending is going to go through the roof. I think the Europeans, they're going to spend a lot more money. And they're going to spend it on American defense goods. It's the only way they're going to avoid those tariffs. So these tariffs are basically a negotiating tool to pour more money into the defense sector. And I'm not a huge fan of the defense sector, but if it's saying, give me money, I'm going to say it's giving me money. Now, for you options traders out there, I'm just going to throw this one out there. IV percent is 3. Just putting that out there. Some of you will know what that means, some of you don't, and that's completely fine. I don't want to mislead people into buying options here in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, I'm really, really liking that. So where would I set my stop loss right now? Probably at the breakout point here, that blue line, 189. So that's probably where I would set it. And then if it keeps going up in a straight line, then we keep nudging it higher and higher and higher. And I think there's a fairly good chance that it'll keep doing that because Trump's pouring money into the good old Boeing people, and hopefully they'll learn how to build things. So that's stock numero uno. Exciting, I know. Stock numero deux is Lockheed, the Martin. And Saudi Arabia is going to proceed, or likely proceed, with F-35 purchases, which could be huge. Now, they've wanted those for absolute ages. Say 50 to 100 would be a multi-billion-dollar project with, decades of overruns and a doubling of the cost, likely, judging by Lockheed Martin's history. But yeah, they're also obviously a major player in satellites and so on. They could also get a lot of money from there. Saudis already have THAADs. It could mean upgrades, especially given that the Iranians are nearby and their missiles are getting better and so on, and the Houthis, which is basically Iran's naughty cousin. So I think Lockheed Martin is going to get a lot of this money, like a lot of this money. And the chart, the stock, hasn't really done a lot, but it's exactly the textbook setup that we look for. Now I'm thinking textbook. Well, what textbook? felixprehn.org/get free. It's a 15-minute textbook, and you learn exactly what I'm talking about here, the exact rules, and it'll make a lot more sense. So if I was to do anything, if I were you, I'd leave this video and I'd watch that because you'd get a lot more out of this. But what we do in a nutshell is we draw lines in the sand because that makes a lot of sense with the Saudis. And essentially, we're connecting the recent highs. That's sort of the line here. And you might be thinking, well, what about that red candle there? Well, we actually closed below it, so we don't care that much about it. I try to connect, well, more or less the closing highs. And that's it's not a precise science. It's not about the 10 cents or the 50 cents, more or less. It's just about being clearly above that. And so what am I going to do? I'm going to set up a buy order above 480. Say 480 and 50 cents, something like that. Why? Because these round numbers get hit and then we come down again. That's usually how it works. You want to be a little bit above that. And why am I doing that? Why am I not just buying it down here where it's trading right now? Because right now it is below that yellow line there, which is and I'm writing with a mouse, so you got to excuse-moi, 50-day moving average line. That's the 50 MA here. And I'm using Trade Vision if you are not familiar with that. Again, there's a link down below for a free trial. And I don't like to buy things below the 50 because the likelihood that it's going to go lower is quite significant. Even though we have these glorious news out there, the market's kind of going, yeah, you don't know how much money Lockheed Martin is going to get. And Martin is jealous of Lockheed. So we break over that line. That's where I'm buying. And if we don't get that, I simply don't buy it. It's very, very simple. So I've got about 10 buy orders open. I had a look this morning that haven't fulfilled yet. Am I upset about those? No. Am I FOMOing on those? No. Am I adjusting those? No. You know what I'll do when we get to Sunday? I cancel them all. And I forget about them. And I just ignore them. And then I find my next opportunities for next week. And that's how we actually make money. Now, the third stock is one that you know a little bit more about. Palantir. And we don't have super details on what Palantir is going to do here. We know Alex was there with his magnificent hair, and I just don't think he'd get on the plane if there wasn't some sort of idea of a deal. I don't think he was like, hey, Your Highness, I'm Alex. Nice to meet you. I don't think that's quite how it works. I think they actually have some conversations in advance, and typically when heads of state meet, it means that the lower officials, so to speak, have sorted everything out. They know what's going to happen there. Now, Trump being Trump, I'm sure he does his thing last minute, but that's generally speaking how these things operate. These meetings are more for show and, showing the world and the press and that sort of thing. The actual deals happened before. As I said, Trump, he's probably made the deals larger and more bigger and more beautiful than the officials could have done, but that's usually the way this operates. So I think they are getting some money here. And if you think about it, everything that's being built in terms of hardware, unless it's connected to some sort of smart operating system that knows where everything is and knows how to talk to everything and make things autonomous and give everything data and gather all that stuff from drones and satellites and all the sensors and everything, what's the point? No one in 2025 is going to go, oh, I'd like some of those nice 1980s planes and guns. They're just stupid. We don't do that anymore, right? So everything is about data. Everything is about surveillance. Everything is about making decisions as autonomously as possible. And therefore, the whole IT and communication system upgrade is really Palantir's sweet spot here. So that's one of the 5 categories of the defense deal. No details were given on that, which makes sense because it's classified, obviously, right? But between Gotham and AIP, we expect them to get a lot of money, and continuous money. And okay, here are my last 2 buys points for Palantir. The first one was this green line here. I said if we close above $99, we should buy it. And we closed above $99 and we went up another 25%. And then what happened? We pulled that back and people were like, he was wrong. No, that's just how breakouts work. We go up and we come down a little bit and then we continue to go up. And maybe you got knocked out of that. That's also okay. And then I said, well, the next buy point is, and that doesn't mean I'm always right, by the way. Nobody is. Like somebody said in comments the other day, oh, Felix's system doesn't work. You said buy, I think it was SEK, and it didn't go up. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm like, if you want certainty that every single investment you make is definitely going to make you money, I mean, treasury bills, that's really the only thing I can think of where you're going to get that outcome if you hold them till expiration. With stocks, you're just never going to get that. You are never going to get a 100% hit rate, and we don't aim for that. I don't even care about the percentage hit rate. I just care that our winners are big and that our losers are small. And how do we take care of that? Well, simply with automation. So watch the masterclass and, then you'll understand what I'm talking about, and it'll literally change your life. Like, promise. Like, it'll literally change your life. Like, you'll be smiling as sillily as I am, and you'll just be grinning like a Cheshire cat. So why that line there? Because was somewhat above the recent 2 highs here, and closing above that is a bigly deal. We did that. We're even gapping up here as I'm recording this, and by the time you watch this, it might be 12 hours later, 20 hours later. Doesn't matter, by the way. And some people are saying, oh my God, look, the price is wrong. This video is old. Like, it's not about that. It's about learning the structure. And I'll set these trades up on a Monday morning or on a Sunday, and then they get triggered during the week, and I don't even look at them unless they move like 10% or something, in which case up. I might move my stop up. So it is just about like process. It isn't about a few cents. It isn't about, am I buying this 50 cents higher or lower? It's just about, am I getting in at the right point where all the institutions are now paying attention and where everyone's therefore going to want to buy it? And yeah, Palantir's valuation is, I mean, it is what it is. It's kind of a bit bonkers, but momentum doesn't care about valuations. So we can make a lot of money with something that looks really overpriced, and this could go like a lot higher. And the value investors will be screaming, and the momentum guys will make all the money, which is, by the way, what happened on Wall Street in Chicago in the late 70s. Up to the late 70s, everybody was a value investor. Everybody was not watching fundamentals, was just looking at the numbers, the profit margins, all that good stuff. And then somebody came along and figured out how to read charts and was like, I need to do that. And they're just killing it. They made like 10 times more money than the fundamental guys. And the last fundamental guy was buried in 1982, I think. That's not actually obviously true, but you know what I mean. There are no more fundamental investors on Wall Street. So what's the next one? Well, Archer. And Archer makes eVTOLs, right? Vertical takeoff and landing aircraft for mostly civilian stuff. My feeling is that they are going to get government defense contracts. That's my feeling. We also have that, the Saudi investment fund showing a strong appetite for investing in future technologies like robotaxis with Tesla. And in the current $600 billion announcement, 142 is defense. Getting some money into something like Archer, I think, is possible. I believe they have a deal in Abu Dhabi. The Saudis are, I think, a little envious of the Emiratis, which is sort of Dubai and in Abu Dhabi. I guess they've just been a little bit further ahead of the curve, and I think the Saudis are studying that and learning from that. So possible, right? I'm not saying guaranteed. I'm just saying possible. Stocks absolutely blowing up after earnings here, which is very nice to see. And does that make it a buy? Well, yeah, pretty much on all counts. The only fly in the ointment now are these two highs over here from January 2025 or late 2024. So if you wanted to be really cautious, you'd wait to take those out, and they sit at approximately 1150, something like that. It's not a must. Where do they sit? Yeah, about 1150, 1160. So, if you wanted to be a little bit more cautious. Also, when you get these sort of green big god candles, quite often we pull back a little bit. Again, that's completely natural. I wouldn't freak out about it. Obviously, you want to have a stop somewhere below it. But this is a very, very, very bullish reaction to earnings, which were obviously good, right? How good were they? 22% surprise on profits. Surprise! So that's good news. Now, I thought I'd give you two more. Which is, one is Raytheon. They make air and missile defenses, really. So they are the Patriot missile defense system people, which has been around since, circa 1689. The Romans used to luck, cows at things that flew at them, that sort of thing. And Saudis are a major Patriot operator. So this deal is gonna include upgrading their air defense and therefore the Patriot system they already have. A lot more missiles, new units, smarter units, faster units, more pretty units, better looking units, that sort of thing. So Raytheon here looks, the ticker symbol there is RTX. And does that look good? Oh, yes, that looks good. Let me show you why. So again, connect the recent highs, draw a line, and we closed just above that. But we are also above the yellow 50-day moving average line, very nicely above the 150. So that looks pretty good. Now, the candle in itself implies that we went a lot higher during the day. We went to 132 and then we came down again, which isn't brilliant, but at least after hours as I'm recording this, we're a little higher than that. So if you want to be cautious, you'd wait for the next day's candle to be at a higher close than this one, but it looks pretty good to me. Volume isn't tremendous, but it does look good. So any problems with it? Not a lot. There was a little bit of overhead resistance up here from those sort of levels, which will be at about 135, right? But $4 higher. But I'm liking it. Dividend pays out in May. Don't sell any calls. And the next one, L3 Harris, and you might have heard about that one in sort of connection with Palantir. I guess they're a partner. They make sensors, communication systems, just stuff that are integral if you want to build missiles or air defense systems, and they're just absolutely essential. So they would be expected to benefit from this too. And here is the L3 Harris chart, and I'm absolutely loving this. Why? Because let me draw a little line here connecting the closing highs, more or less. Doesn't have to be 100% accurate. That's sort of the idea. And why do I say it doesn't have to be 100% accurate? Because people get really obsessed about 1 cent and it just stops them from actually doing anything. If you're in doubt, just set it 50 cents higher and it's a little bit safer. So I always err a little bit on the side of caution rather than on the aggressive side. And all of those highs here that we touched will create very strong resistance around about that $222, $223 mark, which also happens to be exactly where that purple line is coming down, which is the 150-day moving average line. So we break through that. Ka-ching. That's the plan, especially if volume picks up. So what would I do if it was me? I would be setting a buy order at about $224 on the closing price, not just on the breakout. And you're going to ask me how to do that. I'm not going to run you through brokers. Brokers are a pain in the neck, but well, just watch the video on how to use a broker or ask Grok or something like that, and it'll tell you how to do it. Grok will actually tell you how to do that in pretty much any broker. So I like to buy at closing prices, not at midday or halfway day prices or morning prices or afternoon prices or whatever. And if you look at this, like that could open us up to a very nice rally to kind of, Trump highs here, which would be, how much higher are we talking? So from where we are right now to the highs would be 22% up, which would be quite sweet. Possibly more, obviously. And if it dips, then, well, we get the heck out. So where would we set a stop on something like this? Well, I think the recent lows again would be a good level. So there are a couple of options here, depending a bit on how paranoid you are. There are a bunch of lows here that you could use, which also coincide with the 50-day moving average line, which can be a reasonable line to use. You could go a little lower if you wanted to be a bit more aggressive about it. But generally speaking, that's sort of the space I would probably be in. If you wanted to be really, really gung-ho on this, you could take these lows from over here, because these are quite sweet too. So there are some options, and there is some... Well, it depends a little bit on like how you set up, how diversified you are, that kind of stuff. Is it a bigger position? Is it a smaller position? Do you have money pouring in every week from 9 income streams, or is it just the one? Or are you retired? In which case, you want to be a little bit more cautious. But that's basically the way I would look at that. So I think there is a huge opportunity here in defense, and I'm sure there will be other defense players as well that we'll think about, and that'll pop up over the next couple of days and weeks. And if you actually understand what to look for and how to find these things and how to set them up, well, then you don't need me. And that's always my goal, right? That you don't need me. I always say to my students, guys, the goal is for you to get independent with this, get the confidence, and never think of me again. Well, hopefully you think about like, this is where I learned, and now I'm free, and I've taught everybody in my family, and I'm the hero because now I'm the first guy who actually got real financial freedom into the family and built the generational wealth, and my children never have to work again. And I said that the other day, and someone said, oh, I never want to meet those people who don't have to work. They must be horrible people. I'm like, do you know how that shows how indoctrinated we are, that going to work like 9 to 5 is somehow like the fulfilling thing that humans should be doing with their time? It's just nonsense. Doesn't mean you don't have to do anything. You can do wonderful things, whether that's doing something to help others or do something creative. There's a lot of stuff you could still do. You could still set up businesses and make cool stuff. It's just you're not going to be doing a job that you don't want to do, right? Which is like, I'm staying in this beautiful hotel here, and well, if you look at some of the breakfast staff, they clearly don't really want to be there, right? I look at the housekeeping staff, and some of them are lovely, and some of them just look really tired, and I feel sorry for them because they're obviously working very hard, and it's not what they want to be doing with their life, is it? Let's be honest about it. So I think for most people, that is a beautiful goal, and I'm very lucky. I got there relatively early, or maybe late, but some thoughts, but relatively early in life, and I don't want to do nothing, because doing nothing doesn't really give you any satisfaction, right? So I'm super lucky to found this beautiful YouTube community here that you guys are part of, and help people. And our mission is to make 1 million people financially free, and it's just like the most satisfying thing I've ever done. And I wouldn't be able to do this if I had to go to work. Like, I just wouldn't be able to do that. So I wish you much success. Enjoy the rally. Just make sure you keep the gains. That's what it's all about. All the best. Felix here, and the deal just struck in Saudi Arabia isn't just enormous, but it is a path to wealth creation for you and me. If you want to join me here, I'm hanging out in the south of France, where I thought this is important enough to walk you through which companies and which stocks will actually benefit the most. There are 6 or 7 that really stand out.